Elias Ward stepped off the research vessel Horizon's Reach with careful steps, feeling the soft ground of the moon Vathora beneath his boots. The soil glowed faintly under the light of the two suns, giving the entire forest a gentle blue shine. This place was part of his mission, to study alien plants, collect samples, and report anything unusual. It was supposed to be a quiet day, peaceful and calm, with nothing more surprising than a new type of moss or a strange flower. Elias liked peaceful days. He liked calm work. And this moon, with its colorful mist drifting between the tall crystal trees, felt like a place made for peaceful discoveries. As he adjusted his scanner and walked deeper into the forest, he noticed how still everything was. Even the usual chirping sounds from the insect-like creatures were softer than normal. Elias did not mind the silence, but something about it made him pay attention. He had worked on many planets and moons before, and he had learned to trust his instincts. When nature became too quiet, something was usually about to happen. He knelt down beside a glittering patch of moss, shining like tiny stars. He reached out with a collection tool, smiling a little as he watched the crystals shift lightly under the touch. "Beautiful," he whispered to himself, recording notes. He always spoke softly in new environments. It made him feel more connected to whatever world he was studying. Just as he prepared to take another sample, the ground trembled. It wasn't strong at first, just a soft shake beneath his knees. Elias paused, waiting for it to stop. But instead, the tremble grew. The soft shake turned into a real movement of the ground, and then into a sudden jolt. He quickly stood up, grabbing a nearby crystal tree trunk to keep his balance. A long, deep sound rolled under the earth, as if the moon itself was groaning. Elias realized with surprise that he was in the middle of a groundquake. Trees swayed, but the crystal trunks were flexible, bending instead of breaking. The blue mist swirled wildly as dust rose from the shaking earth. Elias knew he had to stay calm. The ship was not far. He could run back, wait inside, and return when everything settled. But just when he turned to leave, he heard it. A sound that cut right through the noise of the quake. A cry. Small, frightened, soft, but full of panic. Elias froze for a moment. The cry came again, higher this time. Someone was trapped or hurt, someone small. Without even thinking, he ran toward the sound, weaving between bending trees, trying not to slip as the quake continued to shake the ground beneath him. When he reached a small clearing, he saw a crystal tree laying on its side. It looked like it had grown sideways, then fallen, but that wasn't what caught his attention. Under the tree's wide, shimmering branches was a small figure curled on the ground. It was an alien child. Elias felt his breath catch. The child had silver skin that reflected light like water. Their eyes were closed, and they were breathing unevenly. They didn't look injured, but the heavy branch trapping them prevented them from getting free. Bits of crystal dust floated around them like tiny sparkles. The child let out another soft cry, and Elias instantly moved forward. "It's okay. I'm here," he said gently, though he knew the child might not understand human language. His tone was calm, comforting. Sometimes tone alone was enough. He carefully examined the branch. It wasn't too heavy, but it was wedged awkwardly, and moving it wrong could cause harm. Elias wiped sweat off his forehead as the quake slowly died down. He needed to act quickly, but carefully. First, he knelt beside the child, checking for major injuries. The breathing was shaky, but not stopping. There were small scrapes on the silver skin, but nothing life-threatening. The biggest danger was the child's panic and the weight holding them down. "All right," Elias whispered. "I'll lift this, okay? You'll be free soon." He placed both hands under the branch. The crystals were smooth and cold, and for a moment he wondered if they might break apart. He pushed upward. The branch moved, but only slightly. He shifted his stance, bracing his legs, and lifted again with more strength. This time, the branch lifted higher, enough for the child to slowly crawl out. The moment the child was free, Elias set the branch down gently. He hurried to the child's side, watching their tiny chest rise and fall faster than before. The child opened their eyes, large, bright, and shimmering like polished silver, and looked straight at him. Elias gave a small smile. "You're safe now," he said softly. The child blinked, confused but calmer. They reached out one small hand and touched the sleeve of Elias's suit. Elias didn't move. He stayed still, letting the child reassure themselves. Suddenly, a distant sound echoed through the forest, a rhythmic hum, then voices, strange, layered, musical voices that sounded like a group speaking at once. Elias looked up and saw lights moving between the trees, growing brighter and closer. A group of tall figures emerged, wearing armor that glowed with blue and silver patterns. Their movements were smooth and graceful. Their eyes were bright like the child's, and in their hands were long staff-like devices that shimmered with energy. These were Vathorian guards. Elias slowly raised his hands to show he meant no harm. He didn't want to startle them, especially after a groundquake. The guards surrounded him in a circle, their expressions unreadable but alert. One guard stepped forward, dropping to one knee beside the child. The child reached toward the guard and spoke a few quick words in their musical language. The guard stiffened, eyes widening, then looked sharply at Elias. Several other guards murmured softly to each other, their tone rising and falling like gentle wind chimes. Elias couldn't understand the words, but the sudden shift in their posture told him the situation had become important. The guard who had been kneeling pressed a hand to an emblem on their chest. A soft pulse of light spread through the symbol as if sending a message. Then the guard stood, stepped toward Elias, and spoke in clear, practiced English. "You will come with us," the guard said respectfully but firmly. Elias blinked in surprise. "I didn't harm the child, I just—" "You saved him," the guard interrupted, their tone carrying something between gratitude and urgency. "Because of that, the Queen has commanded that you be brought to her immediately." Elias hesitated. He felt no hostility from them, but their serious expressions made him uneasy. "May I at least contact my team?" he asked. "In time," the guard replied. "For now, the Queen awaits. You must come." The child stepped forward and took Elias's hand, giving it a gentle pull. The gesture was innocent and clear. They wanted him to follow. Elias let out a slow breath. He wasn't in danger. If anything, it seemed the child he rescued was very important, so important that the Queen herself wanted to meet him. "All right," he said calmly. "I'll come with you." The guards formed a protective circle around him as they guided him through the forest. The trees parted ahead, glowing softly as if reacting to the presence of the royal guards. The child walked beside Elias, holding his hand the entire time. Through the shifting mist, Elias saw a towering structure rise in the distance, a palace made of crystal, shining like a giant star. As they approached it, he wondered quietly to himself what kind of queen demanded to see a human so suddenly, and what she would want from him. One thing was clear to Elias Ward. Saving the child had just changed his entire future. The palace rose higher with every step Elias took, shining like a giant crystal mountain. Its walls glowed softly with shifting colors, moving like gentle waves of light. The guards walked around him silently, their armor humming quietly as they moved. The child he had rescued still held his hand, looking up at him from time to time with big silver eyes, almost as if they trusted him completely. Elias didn't know why the Queen wanted to see him so urgently, but he felt the weight of the moment growing heavier the closer they got. The crystal ground under his boots changed texture, from soft soil to smooth, polished stone that reflected the sky above. Large archways opened ahead, guarded by more soldiers who bowed deeply when they saw the child. The group moved inside, and Elias found himself walking through halls that felt like walking inside a shining dream. Everything was clean, beautiful, and made with delicate detail. The walls carried faint patterns that shifted when he moved, almost like the palace was alive. He whispered softly, "Incredible," unable to hide his awe. The child beside him made a small, happy sound, as if pleased by his reaction. After several long corridors, the guards brought him to a massive door that looked like pure glass but glowed with living light. Two tall guards placed their hands on circular panels beside it, and the door opened silently, revealing a large throne room. The room was spacious, wide, and filled with natural light coming from openings in the ceiling. A platform stood at the far end, and on that platform sat the Queen of Vathora. Elias stopped walking without anyone telling him to. He had seen many leaders in his life, but nothing prepared him for the sight of Queen Araloon. She was tall, graceful, and elegant. Her skin had the same silver shine as the child's, but hers carried golden patterns that shifted faintly like light on water. Her eyes were calm yet sharp, and her long robes flowed behind her like living light. The guards brought Elias forward. The child let go of his hand and ran to the queen, who immediately rose from her seat and knelt to embrace them gently. Relief washed over her face, softening her strong features. Elias watched quietly. Even without understanding the language, he could feel her love for the child. After a moment, the queen stood, looked at Elias, and motioned for him to step closer. He walked carefully, his heart beating faster. The queen examined him with a steady gaze, studying everything, from his stance to the way he carried himself. "You are the human called Elias Ward," she said in clear English. Her voice was calm and soft, yet carried strength that filled the whole room. "Yes, Your Majesty," Elias replied respectfully. "You saved my child," she said, her eyes lowering for a brief second as if remembering the fear she had felt. "For that, my entire kingdom owes you gratitude." Elias nodded lightly. "I only did what anyone would do. I couldn't leave a child trapped like that." The queen seemed to consider his words. One of the guards stepped forward and whispered something in their own language. The queen listened carefully, then turned her focus back to Elias. "You will remain here under my protection," she said suddenly. Elias blinked. "Remain here? For how long?" "Until I decide it is safe," she answered without hesitation. "The rescue has drawn attention. Some will see your actions as noble. Others may twist them into something dangerous." Elias felt confusion and concern rising inside him. "With respect, I need to inform my crew. I need to return to my ship." "In time," she repeated firmly. "For now, you must stay." He opened his mouth to argue, but stopped himself. There was no anger in her voice, only certainty. It was clear she was not punishing him. She was trying to protect him, though from what, he did not yet understand. The queen gestured, and a group of attendants stepped forward. Their expressions were gentle, welcoming, and respectful. "You will be treated as a guest of honor," she said. "This palace will provide for you. Anything you need you may request. But you must not leave until I permit it." Elias took a slow breath. He understood the situation, even if he did not like it. For now, he needed to stay calm and gather information. "I understand, Your Majesty," he said softly. The queen nodded, then dismissed the guards. The child remained near her, holding onto her robes. As Elias turned to follow the attendants, the child suddenly ran toward him and tugged at his sleeve again. The queen watched the small exchange with a thoughtful expression. One of the attendants guided Elias to a large guest chamber. The room was more luxurious than anything he had ever stayed in. The bed looked soft, The walls glowed with calming patterns, and a window opened to a view of the shining crystal city outside. Elias sat on the edge of the bed, taking everything in. He whispered to himself, "What have I gotten into?" As he explored the room, trying to understand the new environment, the door chimed lightly. Elias opened it to find an older Vithorian scholar standing outside. The scholar smiled warmly. "Human Elias," the scholar said politely, "the Queen wishes that you understand our customs. I am here to answer any questions and provide guidance." Elias motioned for the scholar to enter. "I appreciate that. Why exactly am I being kept here?" The scholar folded their hands. "Your rescue of the young prince has created waves across Vathora. Many are grateful, but some believe your presence may shift political balances. The Queen fears that others might seek to use you, harm you, or turn your actions into something they are not." Elias frowned. "But all I did was help a child." "Sometimes," the scholar replied gently, "simple actions carry great power." Elias let out a soft sigh. "So I'm safe here, but not outside." "That is correct." The scholar explained the basics of Vithorian culture, the importance of family, the respect for life, and the value of calm reasoning. As Elias listened, he grew more comfortable. Vithorians were peaceful, intelligent, and deeply connected to their traditions. They were not trying to harm him. They were protecting him from political conflict he didn't even understand. Later that night, Elias stood by the window and watched the city glowing like a field of stars. He wondered if his crew was worried. He wondered how long the Queen would keep him here. But he also felt something strange. Something like curiosity, even excitement. He had always dreamed of learning about new worlds. Now he was living inside one in a way no other human ever had. The next morning, 2 guards arrived to escort him to a special dining area. The child, Prince Saru, was already there, sitting with the Queen. When Elias entered, Saru brightened, waving both hands excitedly. Elias walked forward and bowed slightly. The Queen gestured for him to sit. "We will speak more," she said. "There is much you must understand." Over the meal, she explained the political structure of her world. Different factions controlled different regions. Some supported her rule, some quietly opposed it. The quake had caused damage across the forest, and rumors were already spreading about the human who rescued the prince. Some believed he was a hero, some believed he was a threat. The Queen sighed softly. "I do not know who will try to reach you. That is why you must remain near me." Elias nodded slowly. He wasn't happy, but he could not deny her logic. The situation was bigger than him. As the conversation continued, Elias noticed how often the Queen studied him, not with suspicion, but curiosity. She seemed genuinely surprised by his calm behavior, his politeness, and his instinct to help. Humans were not well known in this region of space. Most Vithorians believed humans were unpredictable, emotional, and impulsive. But Elias had shown something else, something that made the Queen reconsider everything she thought she knew. By the time the meal ended, the Queen said something unexpected. "You may walk freely within the palace," she told him. "You have proven yourself trustworthy." Elias felt a bit of relief. At least he wasn't trapped in one room. The child tugged on his sleeve again, pointing down a hallway with excitement, as if wanting to show him something. The Queen gave a small nod. "Go with him. He seems to have taken a liking to you." Elias followed the child into the inner gardens of the palace. The garden was filled with glowing plants, floating lights, and small creatures that hummed softly. Prince Saru laughed and pointed at different flowers, explaining something in their own language. Even though Elias couldn't understand, he enjoyed the moment. But as they walked deeper into the garden, Elias had the strange sensation that someone was watching him. He turned slightly, catching a glimpse of two distant figures whispering behind a pillar. He didn't know it yet, but his presence had already started to stir trouble, and the Queen's warning was about to become very real. The palace garden felt peaceful at first. Soft lights floated between the flowering vines. Tiny birds with crystal wings fluttered from branch to branch, and the glowing pathways curved like gentle rivers of light. Prince Saru walked happily ahead of Elias, pointing at plants he found exciting and making small humming sounds that were probably explanations. Elias couldn't understand the words, but he understood the joy. Being around the young prince made everything feel lighter. Yet even with the beauty around him, Elias couldn't forget the brief moment when he noticed two shadows watching him from behind the pillars. The look in their eyes hadn't matched the peaceful environment of the palace. Something had been hidden in their gaze, something sharp and calculating. He kept an eye on the corners of the garden as they walked. Prince Saru continued forward, stopping beside a group of glowing flowers that looked like floating droplets of light. The child tapped one gently, and it drifted upward, hovering like a tiny lantern. Elias watched in amazement. "You have a beautiful world," Elias said softly. Saru smiled at him, then made a gesture that looked like an invitation to follow deeper into the garden. Elias hesitated for a moment. His instincts reminded him of the shadows he'd seen earlier, but he didn't want to frighten the child or show fear, so he followed. The path ahead grew quieter with fewer floating lights. Tall crystal trees surrounded them, bending slightly like they were listening. As they walked, Elias thought about everything that had happened since he arrived. He had saved a child, met an alien queen, become a political figure without wanting to, and now he was living in a palace surrounded by beings who barely knew humans. Even though he had been treated kindly, he still couldn't shake the feeling that something dangerous was just beginning. Prince Saru suddenly stopped beside a small pond where the water glowed softly from the bottom. The child dipped their fingers into the water, making rings of light spread across the surface. Elias knelt beside him, smiling. "It's amazing," he said. "Everything here feels alive." Saru nodded happily. But then the mood changed. A soft rustling noise came from behind the tall trees. Elias looked up sharply. There was no wind, so something, or someone, had made that sound. The child noticed his sudden stillness and looked up too, confused. Elias stood slowly, placing a gentle hand on Saru's shoulder. "Stay close," he whispered. Another rustle came, this time from the opposite side. Elias turned, trying to see through the trees. The glowing mist shifted, revealing a faint shadow moving behind the branches. Someone was watching them. Before Elias could speak, a figure stepped out from behind a tree. The person wore dark robes that covered their face and body. The fabric shimmered softly, blending with the shadows. Elias's heart tightened. This person did not wear the uniform of the royal guards. They did not move like a servant or scholar. Their presence felt secretive, hidden. The robed figure lifted a hand slowly, making a gesture that looked like a greeting, but their other hand tightened around a small device at their side, half hidden by the cloth. Saru gasped and stepped behind Elias. Elias raised both hands calmly. "I don't want trouble," he said softly. The figure tilted their head slightly. Their voice came out in a quiet whisper. "The human has no idea of the danger he brings." Elias felt a chill. "What do you mean?" The figure did not answer immediately. Instead, they stepped closer, their movements smooth and almost silent. "The Queen protects you," the figure whispered. "But not everyone agrees with her choice." Elias kept himself steady. "What do you want?" "To warn you," the figure replied in a low tone. "Your presence affects the balance. Some see you as a symbol. Some think you are a threat. Some believe the rescue of the prince was too convenient." Elias understood instantly. You think someone will try to use me? Not think, the figure said. I know. Before Elias could ask another question, the figure stepped back, disappearing behind the glowing mist as silently as they had appeared. Within seconds, they were gone. Elias looked around, trying to spot them. But the garden returned to its peaceful state as if nothing had happened. Saru tugged Elias's sleeve, worry in the child's eyes. It's okay, Elias whispered. Let's go back. While walking back toward the main palace hall, he kept his senses sharp. The garden felt different now, not calm, but filled with hidden eyes. The shadows between the trees seemed to shift with unseen watchers. Elias held Saru's hand tightly and walked faster. When he finally returned to the main corridor, two guards approached at once. They noticed the tension in Elias's posture and immediately knelt beside the prince. Is everything well? One of them asked. Elias hesitated. He didn't want to start a panic, but he also didn't want the queen to be unaware of the danger. Yes, he said slowly. But someone was watching us in the garden. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Without asking more questions, they escorted him and the prince straight to the queen's private chamber. Queen Heirloom looked up when they entered. Her face softened when she saw Saru unharmed, but she sensed immediately that something serious had happened. Elias told her everything, the rustling in the trees, the robed figure, the warning. The queen listened silently, her expression turning serious. Describe the figure, she said. Elias explained the robe, the hidden device, the quiet voice. The queen closed her eyes for a moment. They belong to the Silent Crest, she said quietly. A group that opposes my leadership. They move unseen and influence decisions from the shadows. Elias felt a cold heaviness in his stomach. Why approach me? Because you are now a part of this, the queen replied. You saved my son. In their eyes, that action gives you power. Power you never asked for, yet power others may fear. Elias sat down slowly. So they think I'm a threat? Not exactly, the queen said gently. They fear what you represent. A human changing the future of Vathora by accident. Prince Saru climbed into Elias's lap, resting their head on his arm as if seeking comfort. The queen watched, her expression softening slightly. There will be more watching you, she warned. More whispering. More trying to discover your intentions. I must increase your protection. Elias shook his head. I don't want special treatment. I just want to stay safe and avoid causing trouble. You have already caused change, the queen said, but her tone was not unkind. But not all change is bad. Later, after the queen dismissed the guards and attendants, she walked with Elias through the tall hallway lined with shimmering patterns. Her steps were slow, thoughtful. You must understand something, Elias, she said quietly. Vathora has been peaceful for many cycles, but peace does not mean unity. There are those who want change, and those who fear it. Your arrival creates questions no one is ready to answer. Elias nodded. What should I do? Stay close to the palace guard, stay near Saru, and most importantly, use your human knowledge. Elias looked at her, unsure what she meant. You humans think differently, the queen continued. You solve problems in ways we do not expect. That makes you unpredictable, but also very valuable. They stopped beside a grand balcony overlooking the glowing city. The queen placed her hand on the railing. There is a threat rising, she said, and it will not stop with warnings. Before long, someone will act. Elias felt a chill rise in his spine. What can I do? You can help us prepare, she replied. Your quick actions saved Saru once. Your instincts may help save us again. Elias looked out at the city, the glowing towers, the floating lights, and the wide sky filled with soft-colored clouds. He had never expected to play a role in alien politics. He had never wanted influence or power. He only wanted to discover new worlds and learn their wonders. But now he realized that saving one child had brought him into a much bigger story, a story where danger moved in shadows, where unknown enemies watched him, and where his actions could shape the future of an entire world. Prince Seru slipped his hand into Elias's, smiling gently. And in that moment, Elias knew one thing for certain. He was no longer here by accident. He was here because fate, strange, unexpected fate, had chosen him, and the real danger had only just begun. The sun rose slowly over the distant mountains, painting the horizon with soft orange light, and the camp came alive with quiet movement. Ryan woke before most people, as he always did, but today felt different to him. There was a strange mixture of excitement and worry in the air. He could feel it even before opening his eyes, as if the world itself was holding its breath. When he finally stood up and walked outside, he found Mira already awake, sitting near the small fire with a thoughtful look on her face. She glanced at him and offered a small smile. But even that smile carried a hint of tension. Ryan sat beside her without speaking for a moment, letting the silence settle between them. The fire crackled softly, and the cool morning air brushed against their skin. Around them, a few people were packing equipment and preparing for another long day. Everyone knew they were close to something important, closer than ever. Mira finally spoke. She said she could not sleep much because she kept thinking about the new signals they had detected last night. For weeks, they had been following strange patterns that appeared on their scanners. At first, they believed the signals were random or just natural interference from the planet's atmosphere. But over time, the patterns became too organized to ignore. Last night, the lines on their screens had shifted again, forming shapes that seemed almost purposeful, as if something or someone was trying to communicate. Ryan listened carefully, trying to understand the mix of hope and fear in her voice. He had always trusted Mira's instincts. She was not someone who jumped to wild conclusions. If she felt the signals meant something, then he believed her. He told her they would face whatever came next together, just as they always did. Soon, the rest of the team gathered for a meeting. Jace, the calm and steady leader of their group, stood in the center and explained their plan. They needed to travel deeper into the valley ahead, where the readings were strongest. It was a difficult journey because the valley was filled with thick fog and unpredictable ground. But avoiding it was no longer an option. If the signals truly came from an intelligent source, then they had to find out. Everyone agreed, though some people exchanged nervous looks. It was natural to feel anxious. They were far from home, in a place no one had fully explored, searching for something mysterious and unknown. But the possibility of discovery pushed them forward. The group started their journey shortly after breakfast. The path to the valley was rugged, with large stones that shifted under their feet and tall trees that cast long shadows on the ground. As they walked, the sounds of the forest surrounded them, the rustling of leaves, distant calls of unseen animals, and the steady rhythm of their own footsteps. Ryan moved near the front with Mira and Jace, while others followed close behind. By midday, they reached the edge of the valley. A thick white fog hovered over it like a silver blanket, making the landscape look dreamlike and strange. The wind here was cold, carrying a faint humming sound that none of them could explain. It reminded Ryan of the signals on their scanners, repeating in soft waves. Jace instructed everyone to stay close and move slowly. They stepped into the valley one by one. The fog wrapped around them instantly. It was not dangerous, but it made the world seem smaller. They could only see a few steps ahead, which forced them to trust each other even more. Mira walked with her hand lightly touching Ryan's arm so they did not become separated. As they moved deeper, The humming sound grew louder, vibrating gently through the ground. The others noticed it too, whispering quietly among themselves. Something was definitely nearby. They continued cautiously until they reached a wide, open space in the center of the valley. The fog here was thinner, allowing them to see a tall structure rising from the earth. It looked nothing like the natural formations around it. The surface was smooth and metallic, shaped almost like a tower with curved edges. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. This was no ordinary discovery. Mira's eyes widened with awe, and Jace stood still for a long moment before speaking. He said they needed to examine it, but everyone should stay alert. The structure emitted a faint glowing light that shifted from blue to purple. When Mira approached it, the light brightened, as if responding to her presence. She reached out slowly and placed her hand on its surface. The moment she touched it, the light pulsed strongly, sending a gentle wave across the ground. No one felt harmed by it, but they were all startled. Ryan rushed to Mira's side, asking if she was all right. She nodded, though her voice trembled slightly. She said she felt something inside the structure, a calm presence, almost like a distant thought. Jace exchanged a worried glance with the rest of the team, but told them to continue observing carefully. They spent several hours studying the strange tower. Every time someone touched it, the lights changed color or shifted rhythm. It was as if the structure was reading them, learning from them, or reacting to their emotions. Ryan noticed that when he touched it, the light pulsed with a slow and steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. When Mira touched it, the pulse became more energetic and bright. It was fascinating and unsettling at the same time. As the day went on, Mira became increasingly quiet, often staring at the tower with a distant expression. Ryan gently asked her what she was thinking, and after a moment she explained that she felt the structure was trying to share something. Not words, but feelings, like curiosity, caution, and a sense of waiting. Ryan tried to understand, but knew only Mira could feel it that clearly. By late afternoon, Jace decided they needed to set up a temporary camp near the valley. The structure was too important to leave, and the fog made traveling back unsafe. They found a stable area on slightly higher ground and began preparing their tents. Ryan helped Mira set up theirs, noticing how she kept glancing toward the tower as if drawn to it. During the evening meal, the team discussed their theories. Some believed the tower was a communication device left by an ancient civilization. Others wondered if it was still active and connected to something far away. A few thought it might be a form of technology unlike anything humans had ever seen. Ryan listened quietly, knowing that whatever the truth was, they were now part of something much bigger than their original mission. After dinner, Ryan and Mira walked to the edge of the camp and sat on a large rock overlooking the valley. The fog had thinned slightly, and the tower's glow reflected softly through it. Mira leaned her head on Ryan's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her. Neither spoke for a long time. They simply watched the glowing tower and listened to the gentle hum. Finally, Mira whispered that she felt the tower was waiting for a response. Ryan asked what kind of response, and she hesitated before answering. She said she did not know for sure, but it felt like an invitation to understand, to communicate, or perhaps to discover something hidden. Ryan looked at her carefully. He trusted her more than anyone else. If she believed the tower wanted to communicate, then he believed it too. He told her they would be ready for whatever happened next, and they wouldn't face it alone. As night settled over the valley, the team prepared for rest, but none of them slept easily. The humming sound continued through the darkness, and the tower's soft light painted the fog with gentle colors. Ryan lay awake for a long time, staring up at the dim sky, wondering what tomorrow would bring. He sensed that something was approaching, something important that would change everything. He did not know if it would bring joy, fear, or challenge, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next, their journey was far from over.